Probably sounds like more.
Same. Hello guys, welcome back to another episode of Ladies First. In today's episode, we will be delving into the topic of anxiety.
Today we have a professional, Dr. Elaine Yeo, to answer some questions related to anxiety.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Elaine and I'm a clinical psychologist from Promises Healthcare. Primarily, I work with clients who struggle with anxiety and trauma.
We know that there's a rise in number of people who suffer from anxiety in Singapore. However, that does not mean that you are weak. So maybe to start off, Dr. Elaine, can you briefly explain what anxiety is about and how one gets anxiety?
To start off, anxiety itself is a perfectly normal human emotion. All of us at some point in our life would have experienced anxiety. And what it is essentially is our mind's way of reacting to perceived danger. Like you said, it's getting us alert to danger. Or if someone puts a gun to our head, we're naturally going to feel anxious, right? Because danger. Or it could be perceived danger. For example, job interview, a big test, public speaking event. Where anxiety could start to turn into possible anxiety disorder is when it becomes so overwhelming and so pervasive in our life that it starts to affect our daily life and functioning. Okay, so to give an example, if I were experiencing very intense, strong anxiety, what could happen instead is I get the email invitation and I start to get really anxious about it. So already in the moment, I'm feeling a lot of physiological reactions, a lot of sweating, my heartbeat increasing. I ruminate on it so much that I can't sleep. It starts to affect my work and eventually I might even decline the offer because there's so much anxiety. That's just an example. As to what causes it, some people are more vulnerable to anxiety disorders than others. Some of those reasons would be family history of anxiety or mental illness. It could be that the person is experiencing a lot of life stressors in the moment, right? So it's all piling on. Some folks who are experiencing severe or chronic health conditions, that can also increase anxiety, understandably, because they're worried about their future and such.
Earlier you mentioned that anxiety is an emotion because everyone's capable of emotions, just different, like a variety, a spectrum of emotions, yes?
Absolutely. So anxiety itself is an emotion we all experience as a human. Are you familiar with the movie Inside Out?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's the purple guy, right?
Fear assesses the situation and settles your nerves.
Anxiety falls under the category of fear.
Anxiousness, right?
Yeah, so anxiousness, nervousness, that falls under fear.
How do you determine whether it's just anxious or like it becomes like an anxiety disorder?
If it starts to impact your life to the extent that you're starting to avoid any sort of group setting, avoidance of public speaking, because there's a lot of potential people who could judge you. So when it starts to hinder the sort of daily life stuff.
How prevalent is anxiety in today's society?
According to, I believe it was the World Health Organization, they conducted a survey, I think in 2020. What they found is that 1 in 13 people globally, I'm not sure which countries they actually looked at, have experienced an anxiety disorder, which numbers-wise is actually quite a lot. Anxiety disorders is one of the most common mental health disorders.
I heard that anxiety can be genetic. So do you think it's nature or nurture, or do you think it's both?
So when it comes to nature versus nurture questions, typically what we look at are twin studies. What they found is it's a combination of both. Right? So genetic heritability can play a role. People developing anxiety disorders, so like I said, family history, environment, and stressful life events, that those things can also influence.
So according to an in-depth study done by IMH to assess Singapore population's psychology responses and mental well-being during the pandemic, about 13 of the surveyed populations reported experiencing symptoms of depression or anxiety. Do you have more patients coming to seek help from anxiety during the time when COVID-19 peaked?
Don't have the exact numbers, but I think it's probably a yes. It's easy for me to recall clients sharing the impact that COVID-19 has made on them, right? So a lot of uncertainty, a lot of worry about the future. A lot of people have lost different things.
And also the lockdown, right?
Yes, that's right. A lot of social isolation, financial concerns, right? All of that does come into play.
Between April and December 2020, the National Youth Council conducted regular polls on Singaporean youth challenges and sentiments on COVID-19. So the top stresses cited by these youths or anxiety over the future. This takes a high percentage of 53%. What do the younger generation usually stress about? Why do they face these stresses?
I do work with quite a few like college age. My experience with these youth, another clinician might have a different experience. Some of the findings for the National Youth Council is fairly consistent with what I've noticed, especially in terms of the worry about the future, worry about finances. What I would add to that is I've also noticed quite a bit of anxiety about relationships. So that can include friends, family, partners, a lot of anxiety about their identities. For example, it could be racial, ethnic identity, sexuality, gender identity. Some worry about their bodies, right? So how others see their bodies and how they see their own bodies.
Is it true that females are more vulnerable to anxiety, even imposter syndrome because of that? Because of social media.
Again, in the research, it has shown higher prevalence rates for anxiety in women compared to men. Whether it's because of social media, I couldn't speak to that. I've seen some studies say the potential is because of hormones.
Okay.
Right.
Fair.
Maybe potentially, my guess is also that in society, it's a little more acceptable for women to express their emotions, to talk about their emotions. And that's the interesting thing about emotions is that when we're more aware of them, we might actually feel them more. Versus for men, they're taught in society to, push down, press those emotions, don't feel it, be a man. Generally speaking, probably not for all men, right? Because they're not so aware, it doesn't feel as strong. With imposter syndrome, whether it's photos or videos or tweets, it's possible that youth might put that up and then they get lots of likes, for example, and a lot of comments. They might be thinking internally, they can see through me. If they know the real me, maybe they'll actually hate me. That's the essence of imposter syndrome, like believing that you don't deserve the praise that you're getting, that people are going to see that you're a fraud.
Do you think that's a solution?
I think one interesting thing to note, at least my experience with clients, is for some of my clients, because they're aware of their anxiety and they're also mindful of the potential impact of social media on anxiety, they've chosen to avoid it altogether. So no Twitter accounts, no Facebook, no Instagram. Or if they choose to be on it, they don't post at all. They're just there to catch up with friends.
Consume. I also do have friends,
Yeah.
even to the extent of them being like content creators and then they just decide to leave it all behind. Yeah. Like big followings and stuff and just, oops, I'm not on Instagram anymore, I'm not on social media anymore.
Right.
How can we all better manage our personal expectations? Please share some tips on how to let go of that perfectionist attitude.
One first step that we could take is to first notice what's called the inner critic. A lot of us who have a perfectionistic attitude, we tend to have this very loud voice who's kind of harsh towards us, very mean things.
Yeah.
The first step is always catching that, noticing, what your mind is telling you. And once you've taken that step, you can even write those thoughts down. Once you've taken that step, then the next step is to have a dialogue with that inner critic. Right? So for example, you can say things like, thanks, but no thanks. Let me manage my own expectations. Almost like you're talking to another person.
Sounds like a bully. You never hate me.
The interesting thing about this bully is it stays because it serves a purpose for us, right? In the sense that because it's beating you up, it motivates you to do better. I've had a lot of people tell me, but it's helpful for me. That's why I'm doing so well in life. That's why I have so much success. Or, I've had so much positive feedbacks because these thoughts help me. Ultimately, in the long run, right, it's gonna tire you out.
Yes.
And also, you don't feel good hearing it,
Yeah.
right? You can challenge it, right? Almost like your own lawyer. For example, if the voice says, oh, you're such a failure, then you can say back to the voice, really? Let me think about my past experiences, right? I've achieved this, I've done that, I've had this success, my friends and family have said all these positive things about me, my boss has said all these positive things about me. So all this little evidence you've collected, prove that to your inner critic, right? And then tell them, okay, I'm good. So that's one thing you could try. The other thing is to be more compassionate to yourself.
Yeah.
There's a website that I want to recommend, self-compassion.org, and it was created by Dr. Christine Neff. What I like about it is there's a self-compassion quiz, so you can find out how kind you are to yourself, and there's a lot of self-compassion practice and exercises.
Doctor, is anxiety curable? If so, what are some treatment options?
Strictly speaking, unfortunately, a lot of mental illnesses are not curable, but they are very much treatable in the sense that with treatment, it is possible to resolve symptoms and lead the life that you really want to lead, like you said. So in terms of treatment options, talk therapy, there's medication, or it could be a combination of both.
It's not curable.
Yes.
It's treatable.
Maybe a good example of that would be diabetes. Right. It's not curable, but you can actually go into treatment that helps you.
But isn't anxiety like a psychology concern?
Physical is diabetes, right?
Yes, but because anxiety is like more mental, like psychological.
Same concept applies. You're right that it's different. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
more psychological, emotional. The concept of how it's not curable but treatable.
Never truly go away, but can be controlled.
Yes, it can be managed.
So the modern society is becoming more judgmental with the increase in online presence of social media.
Yeah, with that, let's all try to be more kind and gracious to people online. Let's not be keyboard warriors.
Yeah. So anxiety is on the rise in Singapore and it should never be frowned upon and it should not be seen as a weakness. So we have come to the end of the episode and we have hoped that you have learned something about anxiety with Dr. Elaine.
So we would like to thank Dr. Elaine once again for all her valuable inputs.
So we'll see you in the next episode of Headspace. Bye!